Friends, I'll call the meeting to order. I wish to acknowledge that we're meeting, of course, this evening on the traditional territories of the Sonic peoples who have lived, worked, taught, and learned on these lands since time immemorial, and that we offer this acknowledgement in a sincere gesture to promote reconciliation for our communities. I wish to welcome members of the management team who are joining the board's meeting tonight. Superintendent Everyone to my right, Secretary Treasurer Reed to my left, Assistant Superintendent McKenzie down to my left, and Directors of Instruction Hunter and Westhaver at the table as well. Online, we have representatives of our partner groups representing the Saanich Teachers Association. Mr. Peterson, welcome, Don. Representing QP 441, Ms. Candace Whitney, we see you too. And representing the Saanich Administrators Association is Ms. Dennett from Bayside, down on my right. And representing the Confederation of Parent Advisory Councils of Saanich, the District PAC, Ms. Jamie Roberts. Welcome, Jamie, good to see you again. Trustees, is there a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Trustee Vandal, seconded by Trustee Hickman. Are there any late items or proposed revisions? Trustee Sills.
Chair, under item 13, I would like to add my reports on the Memorial Park Society meeting and the BCPC meeting.
All right, so trustees, is there any objection to adding those two? Okay. All right, we'll add those two. We're up to 5 at this point. Now, Trustee Van Well, you have one as well?
I have a report from the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice.
Any objection, trustees, to adding that report as well? Thank you, that will be added as well. Trustee Van Well. So, any other late items, trustees? I'll put the question on the agenda as amended. All in favor? Opposed? We have an amended agenda. Prior to the regular meeting, the board held an in-camera meeting and discussed personnel matters and facilities. Let's deal with the minutes from the February 14, 24 meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes of February 14, 2024? Hearing none, I declare that the minutes be adopted as circulated. Item 4 is business arising from those minutes, which we just adopted. And first is the Shashisha Child Care Historical Display. Board, you'll remember that I was absent for the February meeting and that the motion to approve the proposed plan for the pre- and post-contact historical displays at the Shashisha Child Care Center was moved by Trustee Hickman and seconded by Trustee Van Well. And then the board adopted a motion to refer that to this meeting. So the motion's already been moved and seconded. It's on the floor. It's open for discussion at this meeting pursuant to the referral of the motion. Is there any discussion on that motion? Trustee Hickman?
Could we get motion read, please?
Mr. Reed?
That the board approve the proposed plan for the pre- and post-contact historical displays at the Shashisha Child Care Center.
Any other discussion, trustees? Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. And the second item arises from the minutes of February 14 as the budget advisory motion, which I'll repeat, that the board forward a letter, which I won't repeat, I'll do that in a moment. Mr. Reed, do you have that motion from the minutes? We could just to remind trustees. I have it, thank you. That the board work with senior staff to first arrange for a larger delegation from the Saanich School District, including partner group representatives, to meet with the Ministry of Education and Child Care to discuss budgetary concerns relating to unfunded inflationary pressures. Second, communicate to the ministry specific examples of the impacts of inflation, particularly the negative impacts on student learning. Third, connect with other school districts facing a similar scenario, low enrollment growth, to explore the possibility of a collective communication to the Minister of Education and Childcare. So having adopted that motion, it would be of assistance to staff directed to implement the motion if the board provided further direction to that, and specifically with respect to the third branch. With respect to the first one, I understand that senior staff has been and will be in contact with ministry staff about the arrangements for or the possibility of a larger delegation. With respect to the second branch of the motion, which is to provide examples to the Minister of student learning impacts resulting from unfunded inflationary costs, Vice Chair Silzer and I had an opportunity, as I'll provide further detail in my chair's report, to convey some of that to the minister in our meeting of February 29th. There will be other opportunities as well. The real reason that this is here as business arising is because staff would appreciate some further direction from the board on the third element, which is how do we engage with similar districts in order to pursue perhaps collective communications. And so, as is usual with his excellent work, Secretary Treasurer Reid first identified 8 districts who are in a similar position to ours with respect to low enrollment or stable enrollment. Southeast Kootenay, Vernon, West Vancouver, Sea to Sky, East River North, Okanagan, Skaha, Campbell River, and Cowichan Valley. And so the suggestion that I bring before you, trustees, is that this board send a letter to each of those boards advising of our motion, explaining the issue of unfunded inflationary costs, its impact on learning deficits, and asking them to consider being signatories to a joint letter to the minister about this. Trustee McMurphy?
And you're looking for a motion that says that?
I actually have a draft.
I'll move it.
All right. This is the draft. See if you still move it.
Oh, I just read it out.
No, I haven't read it yet, but but that was basically it.
Okay.
Here's the actual wording. This is suggested. Obviously, it isn't written in stone. Move that the board forward a letter to the board of each of the 8 school districts identified as being in a similar low enrollment growth position, explaining the February 14, 24 advocacy motion and requesting that they consider being a signatory to an enclosed draft letter to the Minister of Education and Childcare as a collective communication addressing unfunded inflationary costs.
And I would assume that the letter would include the rationale for what the impact of
Yes.
low or slow enrollment growth has on our ability to
Yes.
fund the budget.
At some length.
Okay.
Yes. We move that. Seconded by Trustee Stiltzer. Any discussion, Trustee? Trustee Alder?
Chair, I just have a question through you to the Secretary Treasurer. When 9 districts set themselves up as being in a unique situation with respect to inflationary pressures, there are 51 other districts saying, you know, we have challenges too, and if you get more money, we get less money. Is there an outreach perhaps through BC ASPO to kind of soften the potential impact of 9 districts banding together, appearing to speak for a different funding model or a different level of funding that may impact others, at least they may perceive that?
That wasn't a consideration in selecting the districts. These 8 districts, we looked at districts that were medium sized, so between 5,000 and 11,000 enrollment. and districts that over the last 5 years were growing or declining by less than 1%. And the districts that aren't included in that that category fall into a few buckets. One of them are very small districts that generally have a very significant geographic supplement and aren't really impacted in the same way. Another bucket are districts that are declining quite rapidly and receive supplemental funding for enrollment decline and are able to manage their inflationary cost pressures that way. The other bucket are districts that are very large and are benefiting from scale, which we know happens in a funding model that's highly leveraged to enrollment. And many of those districts are also in the last bucket, which are districts that are growing quite quickly. And a district that's growing 3 or 4% or more a year is able to allocate funding from growth to fund those inflationary cost pressures. And so the view is that outside of, while those districts may have their challenges with the funding model, some would say, they're spending a lot of money on portable classrooms, and that's impacting their operating funding. But the way the letter is drafted, it's focusing really on the particular issue of not being able to pull enough money out of growth to fund inflationary cost pressures. So it doesn't state that other districts are receiving more than their share, but simply that there's an issue for districts in our particular circumstance.
Thank you, Chair. I support the motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Trustee McMurch?
Yes, I think the Secretary Treasurer has alluded to this, but I'm assuming that the letter would include reference to the quantum overall being insufficient for everybody, including district reportables and growth, et cetera. And as well as the idiosyncrasies of the way the formula is applied, which affects districts like ours, which are neither here nor there in the sense of they're not big and they're not little in terms of students. So, and we don't have the recourse that other districts have to like things like funding protection or the benefits of growth. So I'm assuming all that would be in the letter. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll put the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reid, for your work between meetings, bringing us to this point. We'll move then to item 5 on the agenda, which is presentations, delegations, and questions. We have a presentation we're pleased to receive this evening from the Saanich Career Programs at ILC. Ms. Colleen McNamee and Ms. Heidi Hackman have some wonderful news for us.
Yes, we do. And I think we shared some slides. Okay, so tonight we have 6 students with us. There were more award winners. There were 2 more, but this year we had 8 students win the $1,000 Youth Work in Trade Award. And so just so you know, they have to be signed as a youth apprentice and complete 4 youth work and trade courses and have log 900 hours with Skilled Trades BC. By August 31st of the year, they turn 19. So most of the students here tonight actually graduated in June of 2023. So if you think that's not a long time to accrue those 900 hours, these students have been working hard in grade 11 and grade 12. And so we're very pleased. They've been waiting a long time for these checks since August 31st. And yes, so we're very pleased that they were able to make it tonight with their parents and other supporters.
Yes, and we'd like to thank the parents. They're a huge part in supporting our students with doing their hours. They are driving them to their employers. They are buying them tools. They're helping them with the paperwork because there was a lot of paperwork. And so a little shout out to thank you to the parents and guardians. We couldn't do without our Saanich staff, and that goes from everything from our career clerical. We have Nicole Thibodeau over there, who's one of our teachers who's there as well. We couldn't do it without our homeschool teachers at Claremont, at Stellies, at Parkland, at ILC, at Sides, and as well as all the clerical and people that support these students in getting their hours. One of the huge supports are the employers. Just over a month ago, and we had an employer evening in Saanich, and we had over about 20 employers, hence the beautiful hats. And we had employers come and give up their night to learn about how to support students. And we had people from civilian D&D, we had Liquid Metal, we had one of the parents over here from Slater Electric. We had lots of people give up their time to learn about how to support our students. So we are so fortunate in the Saanich School District to have a team on the peninsula that care about our students and their work in the skills trades. So without further ado, they've been waiting very patiently. They learned a lot about democratic process. I like that, you know, voting and all this. So the first one, Connor Krakus, he did our staff program. And he worked at the New, and unfortunately Connor cannot make it today. As well as we have Nico Chan, Parkland secondary graduate, who also then did the Camosun culinary program, and she is sick tonight. But we do have with us Maya Sanchez. Maya completed the VIU hairdressing program, and she started working at COPA, and then eventually she started working at Karma Salon. I can attest to Maya's amazing talents. Maya colored my daughter's hair in August before she went back to university. So Maya is super talented, and we congratulate Maya on her $1,000. Yeah, my daughter's hair looks amazing, by the way. I tried to get Pete to go, but it did not fly. He was not as interested in the hair, yes. The next student, super proud of next student. This is Daniel Sapella. Daniel Sapella is an ILC Broadmead student. He started working in grade 10. And he was working with his dad as well. His dad is here right now at City Service Plumbing. And I think before Daniel even graduated, he had over like 1,500 hours of working. He would go to ILC Broadmead in the morning, and then he would go work every afternoon, correct?
Other way around.
Other way around, Daniel, I knew it. As soon as I said I knew it. Daniel would come from work and he'd be super dirty, and he'd tell me about the super amazing houses that he would go and work in plumbing service. So Daniel, we're super proud of you. Congratulations. And we got one more, and we have Ben Douglas. Ben Douglas, come on up, Ben. Ben is one of our graduates. He came to me, I remember in grade 11, and said, I want to become an electrician. In order to go into Camosun electrical program, they have to have English 12 before their grade 12 year. So Ben worked his plan, he did everything. He got in, he did the electrical. He also came in first in Skills Canada when we had that competition. First in the Skills Canada competition at Camosun last year in March. And so that was amazing as well. And now he currently works at the place that hired him right after, which is Beltec Electric. So they have a keeper, and he now has finished level 2. So it's pretty amazing. They only just graduated and they already have their level 2 in a trade. So bravo to you. And then the next one.
Dorian Jensen is a Stellies grad, and in grade 11, he did our task program as a trade sampler. Not sure which trade he wanted to go into. And then in the summer between grade 11 and grade 12, did the D&D FSHWEP program for sheet metal. In grade 12, was supposed to go to Camosun for sheet metal, but it got canceled. So he decided to work instead and continued his apprenticeship at Parker Johnson. And then this fall went back to D&D. Where you're loving it.
Yeah, very much so.
He's completed his level 1.
Well done.
Yes, you have to deposit them all right now. I'm not sure when they were written, actually. Next, we have Lila Taylor. And Lila did our trade sampler at Claremont, the tech program, and chose heavy duty as her trade, and did all of her hours at Wilson Transportation. So love that she's representing and has her heavy sweatshirt on it. There we go. And our last award winner tonight is Tori Sears, and you may have seen her in our Seaside magazine a few months back. And Tori also did, is a Claremont grad and did our trade sampler, the text program, did Skills Canada and won, and that's when she decided that steam fitter, pipe fitter was for her. And just completed her level 2 at Camosun, and she completed her hours and works at C-SPAN.
So we're actually kind of excited because I did ask them what they were spending their money on. And they were like, tools, saving, my next level. So I was like, and your parents' dinner, remember we discussed that, dinner. So we're really proud of these students, and we have lots of students who are working towards their youth work and trade hours, and we appreciate the support of the board, and we appreciate the support of our employers. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna have cupcakes too after this. I don't think we've had enough. I didn't see that.
I know you're in a rush for those,
Yes.
but there may be some questions.
Questions? Oh,
Someone's gonna ask.
Trustee McMurray.
My question is, aren't you fabulous?
Aren't the kids, they're just amazing.
I'm talking about you, Sue. You mentioned about Seaside Magazine, the profile that you give to the students and the programs is worth volumes. So thank you for the work you do on that.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Congratulations, all of you. Congratulations.
I think the slides are this.
I'm in trouble. I think our phone.
It's always so good to be able to celebrate our tangible successes. Our students in person knows of them. Item 6 on our agenda is the report from the chair. And so this is, of course, an opportunity to provide an overview of notable or timely board business or matters. Generally speaking, but also involving me as the chair. There was no report last month because I was not here, and I wish to thank publicly Vice Chair Silzer for filling in and chairing that meeting. She did a wonderful job, I'm told. I wasn't here, but I'm sure she did, and I'm told that. So thank you, Trustee Silzer, for that work. My report this evening is a bit of an amalgam of items that would have been timely, but are still relevant from the February meeting, as well as items that have occurred since then. First, I want to thank Mr. Peterson for the invitation to trustees for the Saanich Teachers Association induction, which occurred on January 24th at the Brentwood Resort. And some of us were able to attend and acknowledge and congratulate the new teachers being inducted into local and into our district. On February 9, I was able to attend the partner liaison meeting that Friday in Vancouver with the superintendent and the secretary treasurer. That was rich and intense. We received greetings from the Minister of Education and Childcare and from the Minister of State for Childcare. And we'll hear more about them in a moment. There was a discussion, a presentation around the 2022 International PISA findings, which the superintendent reported on, I think, in his report last month in my absence. There was a FESL update, Framework for Enhanced Student Learning. Mr. Mike Hancock, who is a senior lawyer at Harrison Company Education Firm in Vancouver, gave a presentation on safe and inclusive schools, which of course is SOGI related, outlining the history, the rationale, the purpose, and facts for the purpose of correcting a good deal of misinformation. And there was discussion as well on Bill 40, artificial intelligence, and governance through emergencies, flood, fire, earthquake, COVID, and so forth. I've also been involved in 2 chairs BCSTA calls in recent times. The first, and the one I'll spend most of my commentary on these calls, relates to the BCSTA advocacy plan for the next 4 years, 2020, 24 to 26. maybe it's the next 2 years. We're looking, of course, at an October 19, 2024 provincial election here in British Columbia. And it focuses on that principally for this year, following on the October 19, 23 Chairs and Vice Chairs Advocacy Day here in Victoria. So 2024 is the election focus, 2025 is targeted meetings with legislators, and 2026 is, of course, board and local government elections. So for this year, for the election year, the strategy that BCSTA is fostering is local advocacy, sharing and highlighting the party's platforms on the BCSTA website, and making public education a high-profile election issue. And to do that, a number of strategies are being implemented, leveraging social media and editorials in the media, the establishment of a BCSTA committee, distribution of an election advocacy kit, social media advertisements, inviting party representatives to the AGM next month at one of the sessions for a presentation and questions. And of course, surveying the boards for the top 3 priorities, which was dealt with in the February meeting and sent off to the BCSTA. The second call had to do with the Premier's announcement with restricting cell phone usage in class time, not banning, but restricting. And as I understand it, the school districts are awaiting further information and direction from the ministry for policy or AP development in that regard. On January 28, we lost a longtime Saanich teacher, Helen Hawley, Hawley, at a very young age. She started at Brentwood and then spent most of her career in kindergarten at Lochside. I had never met Helen, but I'm told that she was not only positive, but that she was so committed. She was a visionary. She was a dynamo. Public education was her heart, and that she was a true friend of our district. She was also a true friend of Trustee McMurphy, who taught with her, and she will be missed. She will serve as a huge loss to our district. So on behalf of the board, I offer condolences to her husband, Phil, and to her family, one of whom is her daughter, Delaney, who teaches at Prospect Lake Elementary School. It's already been mentioned, I think, that the parent engagement evening was held on February 22nd at Stelli's, co-sponsored by COPAX. Thank you, Jamie, and the district. And so I want to thank Megan Misovic, the chair of COPAX, and Superintendent Epperwin for the organization of that. Most trustees were able to attend, along with a good number of administrators and some parents. And after the opening, the arrangement was that we would each visit individual schools' showcases where they were demonstrating a program, a project, an event, something to support one of our strategic plan goals. And there was quite a variety in the context of their individual school plans. So it was a different and attractive format. It would have been positive to have greater attendance by the parent community, but that will come because indications are that it was well received and that it can be refined, and there are discussions occurring about the next time. Trustees are aware, of course, that on March 1, we finally got to our afternoon board planning day facilitated by Dr. Jordan Tinney on the theme of evidence-based planning in governance to support our strategic plan. And the summaries from Dr. Tinney and the themes that we developed throughout that session have been distributed, and the work will be ongoing. What that looks like, we don't yet know, but it will be a topic for sure at the next chair, vice chair, so that we don't lose track of the distance that we covered. Trustees attended the Vancouver Island School Trustees Conference March 8 and 9 in Parksville. It's always good to connect with our friends in island districts and receive some continuing trustee development. Trustee Hickman, as our Vista representative, will provide a more detailed report, as you know, in item 13 on the agenda. And very positively, I'm pleased to confirm that the official opening for the Shishisha Child Care Center will be held at 10 a.m. on April 23. This was, of course, some 7 years in the planning after the property was donated to the district 150 years ago. So the official opening will occur then. We expect attendance of both the Minister of Education and Child Care, Singh, and Minister of State for Child Care, Dean, local government, central Senate representation, the public, family members, descendants of the donor will come, district and board representation. And this promises to be a very special time. And of course, I did want to report on the meeting with the Minister of Education and Child Care, Singh, with Vice Chair Silzer on February 29, and to thank Secretary Treasurer Reid for his work in providing us with the key messages that we conveyed to her at that time. It was a half-hour meeting. It was a virtual meeting, and it was supplementary to that attended by Trustee McMurphy and me a year ago. The focus was, as directed by the board in its January motion, unfunded inflationary costs, the same issue that we examined in Business Arising from the Minutes. Minister Singh was, if you've met her, welcoming, warm, engaging, and gracious, as she always is. And as soon as we started presenting, her head was nodding, and she said yes. She waited, but at the end she said, I'm well aware of the problem. You've told me about it before. Others have told me about it before too. So I am completely up to speed on this. We are working for sustainable solutions, perhaps through something like the Classroom Enhancement Fund. There are no promises on timeline, of course, but discussions are happening in the ministry. Discussions are happening with staff. Discussions are happening with the Treasury Board. And so we were left, and I'll invite Trustee Silzer in a moment to weigh in if she wishes to. We were left, I think, with as much as we hope to accomplish, a sense of cautious optimism. One, the problem is understood, and two, the message is that solutions are being sought. I don't know if that will be in a timely enough way for the current budget, which of course is what our advocacy motion addresses. Specifically with respect to the funding model, Minister Singh indicated that it was alive and there were active discussions about that. But we heard that last year too. But at least it's not dead. And then finally, as we were about to leave, Trustee Silzer was so pleased to be able to extend an invitation to the minister for the opening of the Shishisha Child Care Center on April 23. Nola, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would just add that the minister thanked us for the work that the board is doing. So she wanted us to relay that to our board. And she had one question to us, which was how many international students do you have? And we were able to report on that and to say that we would have more if we had homestay places. So she was interested in that. And yeah, it was interesting that she said about formula discussions that they were not talking. Not talking. That's really positive, isn't it?
Not talking.
It's not totally negative. Two knots.
So we will see. Thank you. And then finally, I wanted to conclude my report this evening with this, that as I mentioned, we in BC face an election this year. We're going to face a national election in the next year or so. The US, as we know, with apparently the two prior candidates are facing an election this year as well. We're witnessing wars in Ukraine, the Middle East, upset and disruption in Haiti, intolerance, restrictions on discourse, and attacks on democracy around the world. So I'm reminded in that context that this board, in its local venue and as a microcosm of the whole, represents two integral and essential elements of our democratic system. First, we have a mandate to ensure the education of our students and by extension our community. And second, we are an example in the way we work of democratic governance, where decisions are made in public, for the most part, in an orderly and civil process, with discussion and debate leading to consensus. So I would urge us to remember this and never disregard or diminish our role in this context. Because for democracy to work and to work best, it must be maintained, nurtured, and protected. The public should be educated in its value. The public should be educated in their democratic responsibilities that accompany citizenship, and educated in how and why to engage in community and public discourse, voting and decision-making. And so education in civics for our students is so important. It's essential. And our global citizenship goal, the fourth goal in our strategic plan, is an example of this board's effort in that regard. I note that the definition of an educational program in the School Act is this: an educational program is designed to enable learners to become literate, to develop their individual potential, and to acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to contribute to a healthy, democratic, and pluralistic society and a prosperous and sustainable economy. So may we always, as a local school board, a board of education, remember, respect, and safeguard our democratic institutions and appreciate our local role in that responsibility, for it is not insignificant. There's a double negative perhaps. And finally, we're about to embark on our 2-week spring break and closure, and so I wish all of us the best, a rest and relaxation, to return refreshed, for most of you from Palm Springs, to resume the work taking us down to June. Thank you. And that completes the chair's report, and I'll turn to the superintendent for his.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for a really comprehensive report. I guess you should miss every other meeting so that you get the chair's report as comprehensive as that. Thank you for touching on many of the things, especially losing a valued former staff member here in our district. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I also want to build on the spring break theme as well too. I couldn't be prouder of our staff in this district. This year has felt different. We're not in COVID right now, but there's a fatigue level out there that I don't recall seeing very often. And everybody is still rolling up their shirt sleeves and doing the important work in our buildings. Our teachers, our support staff, our administrators, the facilities team, the staff here in the board office, everybody continues to do what's in the best interest of students. I know that most, if not everybody, is looking forward to a bit of time to recharge their batteries and to come back refreshed for the push to the end of the year. And I just wanted to express through this report my thanks to everybody for their extraordinary efforts in what I think is one of the best smaller school districts, and for that matter, one of the best districts in the province, and I couldn't be prouder to be part of it. My second part of my report tonight is a slideshow as I normally do, and it's on a bit of a lighter theme heading into the break. I think we can all relate to the fact when we get something new and shiny, sometimes we want to show it off. Sometimes you get a new pair of shoes and you're really excited and you want to show people, or maybe it's a new frying pan at home and you want to show it off at your next dinner party. Well, we have a couple of new items in our school district that I thought I would highlight for the board and guests this evening here, along with some fun facts about them. So I am proud to announce that we have our new school buses in operation in the district at this point in time. Our 2 electric school buses are moving. They have been with us for a while, but with everything post-COVID, there have been supply chain challenges. We've been able to get all of the necessary parts, not just for the buses, but for the charging stations that go along with them. So we are charged for the future. Right now, we have 2 electric school buses. They are in our yard. They are what they call Type D electric Bluebird buses, 84 passengers. I believe the first of their kind in Canada at this size. We're very proud to have them, and be the first district to have them. The board will recall that we asked for and received an upgrade of service from Hydro to the school board office. There's a brand new green box in the parking lot. It's a 3-phase service. We had 2-phase before. Please don't ask me the difference. But we needed the 3-phase for our new dust extraction system in the workshop, and it also helped to power our charging stations. We now have enough power coming in here to probably launch a rocket. But we certainly have enough to charge up to 30 buses at any one time. We have 2 charging stations, each with 2 ports in them, so we could technically charge 4 buses right now simultaneously in the yard. We are expecting our 3rd bus later this spring sometime, so we'll have the capacity already installed for it, and we already have a route planned for that one. So here are some fun e-bus facts for you to think about as we roll out our new buses. Each bus will remove approximately 9.6 tons of equivalent CO2 annually. The first bus is already running on Route 8, that's the Lochside route. The second bus just started this past week and it runs route number 2. It goes to Parkland, North Saanich and Deep Cove. Each bus has a charging capacity of anywhere between 150 and 220 kilometers on a full charge. The colder the temperature, the less the kilometers. It takes only 1.5 hours to fully charge the bus, so it can do its run in the morning, come back, hook up, and be a full charge again for the afternoon run. Because they are so silent, there's an artificial sound that comes out at low speed so people can hear them, because they are very quiet as they're roaming around the parking lot. Once it reaches about 30 kilometers of speed, the sound shuts off and they just hum their way down the road. One of the very unique features of these buses is they have pedestrian lights running down the right-hand side of them at the top, so that when the bus is stopped and the doors open, these lights automatically come on and illuminate the sidewalk beside the bus. That's a really neat feature of these ones. That is special, that's right. So this is what they look like. This is the inside of the cockpit of one of them, very similar to what you would normally see in a traditional bus. Here they are. Here's one being charged with one of our charging stations. You can see the one hose plugged in and the other one at a rest position. And there's the man at the hour board bridges in front of one of the e-buses. They look almost identical to a regular bus, but if you notice above Gord's head and just to the rear of the side window there, the emblem on the side is a bright green color versus a black one. So if you're trying to see the bus out on the street and determine if it's electric or diesel, look for the green logo on the side. That's the e-bus. And of course, it also won't have a tailpipe coming out the back. And so this is what one of them looks like stopping outside Lochside Elementary School. You can see 8 on it for route number 8. They're beautiful buses. The kids think they're really cool. The other one, as I said, is on Route 2. It heads up and does the north part of the peninsula. I cheated, that's the same bus. I didn't have one for Route 2 yet. So we are very excited for what we have here so far. Excited that they're on the road finally, excited that they're taking CO2 out of the atmosphere, and that we have more on the go coming. So that concludes my report tonight.
Thank you, Chair. Are there any questions for the superintendent on his report? Thank you. We'll move then to school successes, and that is attached. Is there any comment, trustees, with respect to that list? And then on to committees. And first is the Education Directions Committee with Committee Chair Sulzer.
Chair, I just have presentations and questions to report from the Education Directions Committee. We were very pleased to receive a presentation on building belonging at ILC, which was presented by the 3 campus coordinators from ILC, Daniel Baer, Morgan Homer, and Nicole Thibodeau. And they very enthusiastically and passionately described to us how they create an atmosphere of belonging that directly nourishes student success. The second presentation we had was from Director of Instruction Hunter, Assistant Superintendent Mackenzie, and Director of Instruction Westhaver. And they presented summaries of the student voice on mental health and wellness. They also included the participation, they told us about participation also of SEEK, the Saanich Equitable Access Team. This time that was a little different with the student voice feedback sessions. And then thirdly, Director of Instruction Westhaver gave us a debrief and shared data from the McCreary survey, which is the BC Adolescent Health Survey that's done every 5 years. And this one came out late 2023, or actually the beginning of this year, but it was based on the survey of 2023, which is sent to students in grades 7 to 12. And we went over the data for School District 63. Particularly interesting to compare the data with 5 years previously, 2018. So if anyone's interested in looking at the details of both the student voice feedback and the McCreary survey results for our district, the slide presentations are on the school district website under the Board of Education tab, committee and board meetings, and the Ed Directions Committee. Well worth taking a look. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sulzer. Are there any questions or comments for Trustee Sulzer on the Ed Directions report? All right, thank you. We'll move to Finance, Facilities, and Technology.
Thank you, Chair Dunford. There was a fair amount to digest in this meeting, starting with the risk report update from Secretary Treasurer Reid. It's included in this report for reference and for the public to review. As a side note to that, when we were at the Rhode Island School Trustees Association meetings this past weekend, Secretary Treasurer Reid was the keynote speaker on the Friday night, talking about the role of the Secretary Treasurer. I'm not sure that other boards and Secretary Treasurers there, if there were any, wouldn't have had reason to feel somewhat intimidated by the quality of work that was evident alongside the quality of the presentation. It's clear that our Secretary Treasurer does not only an extraordinary amount of work, but the quality is always at the very highest level. And that's also in just one of the topics that you discussed that night, the risk management reports. And I was hoping that other boards were listening and we're going to be able to look at this report and see how it's done. Because this report is shared through the committee and tonight with the board. I think is an exemplary report. And I think it's, goes a long way in supporting the board and its decision making with regard to budget priorities as it relates to risk and different levels of the different types of risk. So that's provided to people's information at this point, and it was discussed in the meeting. There are 2 items for recommendation. The first one, before I put the motion on the floor, is a relatively minor outcome of a relatively significant and substantial report that came through the committee, and that's attached to this report. It includes a briefing note that summarizes where the board stands with respect to its newly established transportation protocols through the very extensive process and the major revisions to policy and to administrative procedures. And specifically, that briefing note speaks to the hopefully the request of the board for support for the fee structure that's been contemplated and vetted through community for a long time now. And it also explains what the money will be used for, which I think is very interesting to read and important for us to see the overview of the Traversa Ride 360 software that will, I think, cost about what the fees will recover and will provide the transportation department and the drivers with up-to-date information, cards for students that they will have on day one, tap-ins so that every driver with a tablet on board knows who's on board. It syncs back to head office so that if a parent calls transportation and says, "Where's my child?" they can say, "Right now on this bus at that location." Very, very helpful information, and also will support the transportation department in determining who ought to be on the bus from day one, who is, who isn't. Help determine if there are what we know of as ghost rider students who have registered but aren't on the bus. It'll help with students who are riding the bus just to get to the pool or something, which is an example that was given, and don't have the passes and shouldn't be on the bus. So it'll really clean things up. And the fees themselves will also support people in being serious about registering, and with the late fees, serious about registering on time. So that briefing note is there for people to see, and with that as a backdrop, I move that the board approve establishing, the committee recommends the board approve establishing for bus service, a registration fee of $25 and a late registration fee of $100.
Trustee Hickman, you're seconding?
Thank you.
Spoken to it, Trustee Elder. I take it.
Chair. And just to add that, I don't know if there are questions about that fee, the fee structure and the content of the briefing note that's Secretary Treasurer would be more than happy to provide those answers.
Thank you. Trustee McMurphy.
Thanks, Chair. Through you to, I'm not sure the chair or the Secretary Treasurer, but somebody. About how many students ride our buses?
This year we have just over 2,700 registered riders.
So 2,700 times 25, what's that? And well, I'll tell you what my question is. What's the cost of the Traversa Ride 360, and will the fee pay for the cost of the technology?
Yeah, we expect that the fee revenue on an ongoing basis will be a little bit above what the cost is on an annual basis, but we do have an upfront cost in year one to buy tablets and other equipment on the buses.
And I'm not sure if this is an appropriate question to be asked under this motion, but do we need to provide training for the drivers in terms of how the software is and how do we do that and et cetera? I mean, I'm sure it's all looked after, but I just want to make sure it's.
Yes, yeah, and there's quite a bit of work to implement this system as well, in terms of ensuring that we have the right information in the database for the system to work as it should, and ensuring that that we have all the appropriate steps in place to around the protection of data and privacy.
Okay.
So that work is happening now.
And you're expecting it to be ready by September?
Yeah.
Training and the preparation.
Yeah, we expect the tool to be functional by September. There is a one of the options for the tool is for parents to actually to be able to log into an app and see for themselves
Yes.
where their student is.
Yeah.
And we're not sure if we will have that aspect of the tool operational by September, because that one requires some additional care to make sure that only parents are able to access that information. So we'll require validation to MyEd data, databases, et cetera. So that part of it is a little bit more complicated, and we want to be careful about that part. And so that particular tool may not be ready to go in the year, but the functionality of the system for us to manage the system, we plan to have ready to go in September.
My last question is related to how are we disseminating this information to the parent communities? Is that like through COFAX or through the schools, or how are we going to involve parents in understanding the new approach?
We are planning to communicate with parents later this week, assuming this is approved by the board tonight. We've included in the briefing was a one-pager on the process, registration process, so that'll be included in the communication.
Oh, that.
That will go to parents later this week.
So this one will go out this week?
Yep.
This stuff. Okay.
Yes, it will. And we're also meeting with the management team on Thursday, and we're going to outline the registration process, the fees, et cetera, for administrators. So they're also positioned to answer questions.
So is this going out on the district email system, or is this, okay?
Every parent.
Yeah.
Thank you for your questions, trustee Murphy. Trustee Manuel.
Thank you, Chair. I believe I have what might be a friendly amendment, unless people agree, but I believe we talked at committee about adding per student at the end of the motion.
Yes.
And so if we agree.
Yes.
Very good. Is there any objection to that? I think everyone agrees. Yeah, well, let's do that then. So it would read that the board approve establishing for bus service a registration fee of $25 and a late registration fee of $100 per student.
Per student, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Just to comment, we did make a change in this document.
Okay, good. Are you ready for the questions, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Also leading up to the motion you see as item 2 under items for recommendation was a report from the Budget Advisory Committee, which included discussion during the committee meeting of the Budget Advisory Committee meeting of ways to generate greater involvement in the community public budget forum, which is scheduled for mid-April. And we talked in committee about ways to, in addition to inviting people, finding some ways to really excite them or incentivize them rather than just say, here's a meeting, do you want to come? I'm not sure if it's possible to do that with some clever enticement, but there was a good discussion in that committee meeting that day about how do you get more people to that community, like the public budget meeting, which is the subject of the motion, which is to move the public budget meeting from April 18th to April 17th to allow trustees and senior staff who might be attending the BC School Trustees Association annual general meeting, which starts on the 18th, to actually attend that meeting on time by moving this meeting to the night before. So the committee recommends that I move that the board reschedule the school communities and public budget meeting from April 18th, 2024 to April 17th, 2024. Not stated there is same location, same time, but I think that goes without saying.
Thank you, trustee Elder. Seconder, trustee Van Well. I take it you have nothing to add to trustee Elder. Any other trustee have any point, comment, debate, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you, Chair. There were 2 items for information, both of which are attached, which are worth noting here. The plan to install external defibrillators in every location, schools and other buildings in the school district, with requisite training and so on that would go along with people knowing what they are and what they're for. So great to see that that's happening. And the fiscal forecast is provided without too much distance from what ones that we've seen before. Unless there are questions through the committee and through Chair Dunford, Secretary Treasurer, and others.
Thank you, Trustee Elder. I'm not seeing any hands. Thank you for your report. And we'll move then to policy development with Committee Chair Van Watt.
Thank you, Chair. We had one item for discussion, and that was in regards to policy 9, section 7, the procedures for delegations to the board committee. We talked about the idea of narrowing down the delegations that come to our board meetings. We had some really good discussions on it, and we have given staff direction on presenting options for amending this policy and coming back at a future meeting.
So it's still with committee today.
It's still with committee, yeah, it's still with committee. They're gonna bring some information back to us.
Percolated to the board.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Trustee Van Watt, Trustee Van Watt?
Yes, through you to Trustee Manuel. I'm not sure, you mentioned some, maybe I didn't hear it right, something about narrowing delegations.
So, the idea is that right now it's open, it's very much open, and that the discussions that we had talked about was possibly limiting presentations. If there's a hot topic, we'd like to see maybe one presentation instead of a possible 2 or more.
Are you talking about like audience members making presentations?
Yes.
I'll make sure I get to the next meeting then.
We'll see you at the next, we'll see you when we're we'll see what we can do.
You're certainly right for missing the meeting.
Well, no decisions were made except to explore it a bit, so that's what. Thank you. Anything further, Trustee Van Watt?
No, that's it.
Any other questions for Trustee Van Watt? Thank you for your report. And we'll move then to reports from trustee representatives. I think we have 6. We'll start with the COPAX report, and the attendees this from the board is not trustees Murphy and Vandal. So
Trustee Vandal gave this excellent report, so
we'll refer to her. Please feel free, Trustee Vandal.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. We reported on several items. February the 26th, there was a celebration for French immersion kindergarten grade 12 students that was held. Student voice sessions continue in our school system in February with middle schools and high school, and the topic was one of the pillars of our strategic plan, which is mental health and wellness. And then March 18th to 25th of this month, SD 63 has a pre-leadership police camp, which is being held for 100 students. Also, this past month, capstone presentations took place. This was mentioned before, but we're embarking on a 2-week vacation, spring vacation, which will be March the 18th to the 2nd. And lastly, which was mentioned as well, is Shisha at BNS Child Care Center will have its grand opening, this official opening April 23rd. Secretary Treasurer Jason Reed was there, and he spoke on our budget and its process. And Superintendent Emberin was there, and he spoke about the COPAX and SD 63 parent engagement. And that completes the report.
Thank you, Trustee Vandal. Anything to add, Trustee Murphy? No. Any questions for Trustee Vandal or Trustee Murphy? Trustee Vandal?
Can I just do a small clarification? So the police week that you spoke about is actually, there was 100 students from Victoria, and Sue and Samet that applied for their positions, but there originally was 50 positions available, and because of the overwhelming interest, they were able to get funding for another 10. So there's a total of 60 students that will be attending next week. And I'm actually have been invited, so I'll be going next Wednesday.
That's how you know all about this, trustee Bennett?
Yes. Yes.
Anything arising from that, trustees? All right, thank you. Thank you, trustee Vandal. Let's move then to the report from Vancouver Island School Trustees Association with our Mr. Representative, trustee Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. This spring conference was held March 8th and 9th in Parksville. And it was opened with a presentation by students from Vancouver Island North School District 85, titled The Kawaka Waka Waks Box of Treasures. Apologize, I didn't pronounce that right. 4 schools participated, 2 elementary and 2 high schools. There was Indigenous traditional singing and dancing with students wearing traditional robes and headwear. Samples of bannock and smoked salmon prepared in traditional ways by students were handed out to all the attendees, and delicious and enjoyed it all. And they also shared a cultural trip to Hada, where students bonded over food that was gathered and prepared together amongst a variety of other events that they had. We committed to share. We then went on to our Vista Business meeting. There was a request to all Vancouver Island districts when they're introduced at the VCSTA AGM to please have something to say about their district. As well as a short questionnaire to all trustees regarding Indigenous education that has been circulated. We then moved on to a showcase by Qualicum School District 69, Student Voices, short presentation by students from Bolinas and Qualicum schools regarding climate action and mental health. Of note, they are hosting a climate action symposium on April 24th. There was also an early learning presentation, pre-kindergarten pilot project, bringing kids into the schools twice weekly over a 6-week period and helping them to acclimatize to the school setting before they start in September. And this was an initiative based because of COVID. A lot of the kids coming into schools didn't have opportunities to be in multi-child group settings before starting their kindergarten experience. So this was developed to help with that. As well, there was a presentation on Seamless Kindergarten Project, blending school time with after-school care by having an ACE worker start at 10 a.m. and work within the classroom and the teacher, and then take on the after-school care till 5 p.m. We then moved on to a strategic planning presentation by Qualicum Superintendent Dr. Peter Jory, who shared Qualicum's strategic plan and the process that they used. We then had a presentation by our esteemed Secretary Treasurer Jason Reed. I'll just go quickly over, he had so much information to share. There was a role of the Secretary Treasurer, sharing that smaller districts, the more that the Secretary Treasurer does, and so there isn't additional support staff. List of responsibilities is too long to list, but suffice it to say that there is a lot rolled up into that one position. We also learned about BC Association of School Business Officials, known as BC ASBO. It's a member-driven organization providing professional development and member support to Secretary Treasurers, Assistant Secretary Treasurers, Directors of Finance, etc. The importance of aligning budget priorities to strategic plans was also outlined. Risk management, what could go wrong and what are the consequences, and multi-year budget planning. We then moved on to a presentation by BCPC. That was a high-level discussion on the 2025 bargaining process for both teachers and support staff. They shared the difference in provincial and local bargaining, which was helpful, and discussion regarding conflict of interest and how that could be managed. The next conference in the fall is hosted by Pacific Rim School District 70. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Trustee Hickman on this report?
It was a lot there.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive report to us.
Thank you.
Moving then to the report from BCSTA Provincial Council with our provincial councillor, Manuel.
Thank you, Chair. So we had a provincial council meeting on February 24th, and this spring it was over Zoom. And it was a decision that was made by the BCSA directors to help saving some money. And that is that particular item is included in the financials, and moving forward, it will be provincial council will, 2 provincial councils, but one will always be, in the spring, will always be on Zoom to help us with the costs. So we had our, and I will say that I attached is the a fulsome report included in with all this information, but on a high level, we had our president, Carolyn Rody. She shared some updates on the BCSTA's ongoing provincial advocacy efforts. Then the CEO, Suzanne Hoffman, she shared a presentation highlighting the learning frameworks and assessments and outlined ways that BCSTA is supporting student success. And then Carolyn then gave a report on the activity of the Canadian School Boards Association, and including the association's work on a Pan-Canadian School Fund initiative. And again, all this will be in the report. They presented a draft budget, and there's just some minor changes in it. But the one provincial council being on Zoom is actually a cost savings of $71,000. So that's, yeah. We had some committee reports, and then we had a presentation which was from the concierge. I actually don't know how to pronounce it, but it's the French School Board, SD 93. And they had the board chair, Marie Ferrier Lavoie, and the superintendent, Pascal Bernier, and they are both here in Victoria. But the interesting thing about this school district is it's province-wide. So they spoke to us about the history of the school board, and went through sort of the minority language education rights in BC and how that all played out, the interesting way that they collaborate with other districts. So they are very grateful that they are working with other districts for classrooms and transportation, of just a few examples of that. And they did suggest that if to help with, because there's the Francophone community is growing in BC, has been growing quite a lot, and they had said that if there are students that are interested and aren't able to get into maybe the programs that we have here, that they encourage the students go to that school board. It helps alleviate some pressures on our school, on local school boards. And they're also willing to do a presentation for any school boards that are interested in learning more. The slideshow that they did present, that was part of the report that was attached to the report that I gave. And that was it. So it was short. It was just a 2-hour meeting. Actually, sorry, let me back up. There was motions, I apologize. And one of the motions was the travel expenses per diem. The meals were increased to a total of $67 for a day. And the Vancouver Island, or Vista branch, actually had our constitution and bylaws update. So we had some minor things that we updated in that, and those were passed. So, yeah. And that's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Trustee Manuel? Thank you, Trustee Manuel.
Thank you.
Trustee Silsby, your turn, the Memorial Park Society.
Thank you, Jared. Just two things to report from the Memorial Park Society board meeting on February 27th. One, they still don't have their charitable tax status back. And they're hoping that they'll have some word by their AGM, which is April 16th, but they're not hopeful. So they're still waiting for the Canada agency for a decision on their charitable tax status. And the second thing is that they've just hired a new theater manager, Gordon Simmons, and they, goes by they them, they are interested in connecting with our high school drama programs. And they expect to have a summer drama program this summer. So is the report from the the Memorial Park Society.
And the Mary Pittsburgh.
And, yeah.
And thank you. Are there any questions for Trustee Silzer on that before we move on to BCPs? All right, thank you.
And BCPC. I just wanted to report that Trustee Van Dorn and I, as representative and alternate to the BCPC, attended a Zoom meeting on March 7th for representatives and alternates. They're hoping to do this once a year where they just review roles and responsibilities, going over the BCPC mandate, a little bit about bargaining and the specific role of the BCPC representative and also again discussing conflict of interest. So that was that. A lot of it was repeated at the Vista meeting that most of us were at. That concludes my.
Thank you. Is there anything arising from Trustee Silzer, BCPC?
Can I just clarify, Trustee Silzer, sorry, was it a BCPC meeting for trustee representatives?
And alternates.
Oh, okay, that's it then, there
Yep.
wasn't a title of it or anything.
It was a Zoom meeting, and it was titled a meeting for trustee
Okay,
representatives.
that's fine, yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Silzer. And then finally, under item 13, back to you, Trustee Van Well, on the Victoria Youth and Family Court.
Thank you, Chair. So at our family, or on February 22nd, I attended the meeting. We had, the guest speaker was Kaylee Owen, and she's a lawyer at Law Center. It's a student-run legal clinic with practicing lawyers that oversee the students. And it's for people who can't afford representation. So they have each semester, there's new students that come to work at the Law Center. And they deal mostly with family law, but it's, and a few other things. And the files are, there's no jail time for these files. So it's and the files are easy, they're easy files for education and, less contentious. So they get their feet wet and we've been dealing with different files. It was an interesting presentation. And then we had some updates on the committees. One of the committees is the Capital Region Action Team for Sexually Exploited Youth. And the chair of that committee talked about how they're developing a graphic novel in conjunction with Mia and Gordon, who are the two people that work with MIST. And this graphic novel is going to be geared towards 11 to 13-year-olds to help show them the things that are going on, so they may not fall prey to some of the things that are happening. And actually, that's it. That's it for my report.
Thank you. Anything arising, trustees? Thank you, Trustee Van Well, and thank you all for those comprehensive reports. as liaison representatives. We'll move then to correspondence. There are 3 items, 2 letters relating to transportation at Fertile Locate Elementary from Ronnie Lake and Slaven Pelagic. And then Mr. Peterson's letter with respect to the STA's views on budget priorities. So are there any questions with respect to those? Trustee McBurn.
I'm assuming, does it require a motion to have the letter from the STA sent to the budget advisory committee?
It's already done.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right. Trustee Silzer?
Actually, just to say that in the ministers' meeting, we did mention that the STA had also, in this part about unfunded inflationary pressures and IT. We mentioned that the STA were also advocating for more increased technology in the classroom.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Or you did.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Trustee. All right, this is our second opportunity for questions from our public or partner representatives, if there are any. If you do, please show a hand on the screen or at the table. Not seeing any, going once, twice, 3 times. All right, here we go. Other business as submitted.
Candace?
Other business as submitted is, relates to Administrative Procedure 560, the Student Transportation Service, which we've seen before this evening and incorporated in a reference. I'll turn to Mr. Reed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. With the board's adoption of policy amendments last month, we redrafted administrative procedure to reflect those amendments to policy. We also expanded the registration process within Administrative Procedure 560 to reflect our new environment of increased ridership and the challenges we experienced last summer and fall with the registration process that resulted from that, the increased ridership. And so we've expanded upon the process significantly to provide more clarity around the process and specifically around the timing of processing the different priorities of riders in catchment, attending a district program or attending a school of choice. The administrative procedure has more details on how and when late registrations are processed and more details around how the wait lists work. And so quite a bit of expansion upon the registration process in that administrative procedure. And I'd like to thank Gord Bridges and Rob Lum. They did a lot of work on their whiteboard, mapping out the process and how it could be improved going forward.
Thank you, Superintendent Deborah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to give special commendation to the Secretary Treasurer for the amount of work done on not only this AP, but the whole policy procedure around bus transportation. It's been a long journey, but an important one. I think this updated admin procedure reflects that hard work and the detail that's gone into it to take a look at all sorts of possibilities and permutations to when people register and what category they're in. It's just outstanding work. I also wanted to thank our Senior Executive Assistant, Lee Glancy, for her work in updating the website of transportation. The transportation page has been updated to reflect some more priorities. She's also provided for a quick access link on the homepage. So it's front and center. So as this information is translated out to parents, if they go to the website, they'll have an even easier time to find updates on what we're doing with transportation. They won't need to search as much. So I want to thank her in particular as well too. And I look forward to the rollout of the new AP and the new communication processes, the new registration processes. I anticipate we're going to see a much smoother rollout come this fall. So thank you to all the people in the background.
Very nice.
Thank you, Trustee McMurphy.
Thanks, Chair. I Superintendent stole my thunder. I wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that's done. I feel a lot safer and confident in the decisions and the program and the plans we've got going forward. I had one question, and that is, how does it, the responsibility of the assistant superintendent to assign individual students? Is that part of your portfolio?
I think the superintendent will answer that.
There may be situations for unique challenges that students might have that they need to attend a different school or a different program, and that is headquartered through the assistant superintendent's office. And should that direction come from his office, we would work to provide any necessary transportation, because that might be an unexpected move.
So presumably, there's a number of layers below with the assistant superintendent assigning the kid to another school.
Yes.
I just thought you could pick a kid and say, well, you know.
Always thought about it.
No, seriously, I know that we skipped over a couple of letters that were, asking us about our transportation and whatnot, and I'm, with it, I think the fee is reasonable. I think the program, the policies and procedures that we've put in place are reasonable and thorough and respective of the environment, respective of the economies of transportation and people's pocketbooks. It's not perfect, but I think it's, as close as we can get to a good middle ground. So I thank everybody that's involved in getting us through.
Thank you for that affirmation, Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Elton.
Thank you, Chair. As this seems to conclude the board's involvement in things transportation, which is good. It's operation, and everything that's been done is operationalizing, and we really appreciate that. I just wonder, in terms of a couple of connecting the dots backwards, this is a yes or no question because it's getting a bit later and I want to answer the question to be easy. Will the parents who have submitted requests for busing to Cordova Bay and the parents of students in French immersion who have requested transportation to their program school be told that the answer is no to each of those? It's been considered and the transportation review is over and those two things will not be happening? Has that communication gone back to those parents?
With respect to particular correspondence.
And previous correspondence from Cordova Bay parents and French immersion parents, who both continue to lobby for something that I think they're not going to get.
Yeah, so I replied, and Superintendent Everett replied to certain communications where there was a question or where a reply was implied in response, but where a letter was sent simply conveying this is our view, please consider it in your deliberations. We haven't replied to every single one of those pieces of correspondence.
Can you just clarify that if push comes to shove with some of those saying, look, I asked you, what's the answer? Does the board need to consider that, or is it clear enough that the answer will be no on both counts? And you can just tell them that.
I think if there was, to the chair, if there's future correspondence, we would certainly be dealing with it on a as it comes in basis.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, and the two recent letters did refer to the economic liability test of 15 students for establishing a route. And so they understood that under the current policy, they wouldn't necessarily get service in there. Thank you.
Anything further on AP 516? Trustees? All right, thank you. Well, we've completed our agenda, and I'd like to thank each of you, all of you, for attending, participating, contributing this evening, and to wish you a healthy and restful break. See you in early April, and Is there any objection to adjourning at this time?
I'd like to stay here.
Hearing none, accept. Trustee McCurry.
That sounds rough.
I just thought I'd drive.